Imagine this. You are a motorcycle courier. Every single day, you pick up a regular passenger right outside her office and drop her off right outside her home. You never even have to call her phone. You simply show up at the exact agreed upon time, and she is always there. But one day, an unexpected situation forces you to go all the way to her residence to look for her. You knock on the door and are warmly welcomed inside. When you mention her name, the hosts look at you in utter shock. No. Then they tell you that they do not know who you are talking about. They don't know her and have never seen her in their lives. Every time you look around that environment, you realize it is the exact same place where you always drop her off, and there are no other houses anywhere near it. As you prepare to leave, the hosts call you back and ask, if the person you're looking for comes and asks about you, what should we tell her? Let me repeat that so you can understand it easily. You are a motorcycle courier, and every day you pick up your passenger outside her office and drop her off at her home. You never call her. You just show up at the scheduled time. But one day, you are forced to go to her residence to ask about her. You knock on the door, you are welcomed in, and when you mention her name, the hosts look at you in astonishment, telling you they have never seen or heard of her. Yet, you look around and know for a fact this is where you drop her off every single day, with no other houses in sight. As you prepare to leave, they call you back and ask, if she comes looking for you, what should we tell her? My brothers and sisters, let me sit back comfortably because this story is absolute fire. Seriously, it's intense. Before we continue, if you love unique, suspenseful stories like this, you are in the right place. Make sure you've liked this video, subscribed to the channel, and left your comments down below once you finish this story. Don't forget to share it with family, friends, and anyone who loves thrilling tales so we can grow our community. A young man named Daniel lived with his uncle, Eric, or let's just call him Uncle Eric. Uncle Eric was the kind of guy whose exact job nobody quite knew. Sometimes he'd travel, sometimes he'd be hanging around the neighborhood blocks, or chilling at the football grounds telling stories with the guys. He was just a cheerful, laid-back uncle. You know the type, right? Those uncles who look the same, from your childhood all the way through your university years, never seeming to age. If you're a young woman, by the time you finish university, they might even start flirting with you, and nobody ever quite knows if they actually have money or just get by on nothing. That was Uncle Eric. Daniel was his sister's son. He had been studying upcountry, but as is common in many village families without a heavy emphasis on formal education, when Daniel finished school, he went straight into farming. Things didn't quite work out there, so his mother begged Uncle Eric to take Daniel in and find him a hustle in the city. Daniel arrived in town and Uncle Eric welcomed him, taking him to his place in the suburbs. They lived together for 3 weeks while Uncle Eric searched for a gig for his nephew. Initially, he wanted Daniel to work as a shop assistant, but when that proved difficult, he decided to get him a leased commercial motorcycle. Since Daniel used to ride back in the village, all he needed was a license. Uncle Eric pulled some strings, got the paperwork sorted, and within a month, Daniel was out on the road working as a professional courier. Uncle Eric told him, work hard at this for now, but it's not a long-term hustle. I'll find you something better later so you can take care of my sister. Okay, boy? Daniel expressed deep gratitude, and when he called his mother in the village, she cried tears of joy over the phone. Daniel started working diligently. He would leave the house at 7 a.m. and be back home by 4 p.m. Fuel tank full, earnings safely in his pocket. His motorcycle was always spotless because he took great care of washing it. He soon gained regular passengers, some for daily rides and others for deliveries. Among his regular passengers was a woman named Maya. On the very first day, Daniel met her. She was standing outside some closed shops around 9 p.m. and asked him to take her home. It was a short trip, about 10 minutes away. The standard fare was small, but Maya handed him a much larger bill instead. Maya told him, "Come back right here, tomorrow to pick me up." When Daniel asked for her phone number so they could coordinate, Maya just laughed and said, "No, you just show up here at 9 p.m., not a minute later than 9:05. And I'll keep paying you this same amount." Then she walked away. Daniel started his bike and went back to his hustle, wondering why she refused to give him her number. He figured she was probably a married woman. Many married women avoided giving motorcycle couriers their phone numbers to prevent trouble with jealous husbands. The next day, true to word, Daniel went back to the same spot and found Maya. That was the day he asked her directly why she hadn't wanted to give him her number. Maya smiled and confirmed his suspicion. Her husband was extremely strict and jealous, so it was better he only knew her by name rather than having her phone number. True to form, Daniel received a generous payout, and off she went. This routine continued smoothly for about 2 weeks. Then suddenly, one evening when Daniel went to their usual spot for their 9:00 p.m. schedule, Maya wasn't there. The next day, she wasn't there either. But on the third day, he found her. As he dropped her off at home, Daniel mentioned, "I was starting to get worried when I kept missing my favorite passenger." Maya explained that she had been sick, and casually added, "Next time, why don't you just come right to the house and ask for me if I'm not around?" Daniel laughed and replied, "Didn't you say your husband is strict?" Maya just laughed without answering, and the conversation ended there. A week later, Maya vanished again. Daniel checked their meeting spot outside the shops for 5 consecutive days without finding her. A whole week passed before he checked the same route at 9:00 p.m. But there was still no sign of Maya. Something inside Daniel pushed him to investigate further. He went to the shops during the day and asked about Maya. The shopkeepers told him she used to work at one of the middle shops, but she hadn't been seen for a full month. She simply stopped showing up to work, and her phone was completely unreachable. Because the shop was open and nothing was stolen, her boss eventually hired someone else. Daniel's mind still wanted to know what happened to his passenger, especially since she paid several times the normal fare. He thought to himself, "Screw it, I have no bad intentions." He decided to go straight to the woman's residence. He rode up to the exact gate where he always dropped her off, knocked on the door, and was answered by a watchman. Daniel asked, "Excuse me, I'm looking for a young woman named Maya." The watchman didn't answer. He just stared at Daniel from head to toe, then slammed the gate shut in his face. Daniel stood there stunned, completely baffled by the reaction. As he turned to leave, the gate swung open again. A tall, dark-skinned, bald man stepped out and called out, "Hey!" "Young man, Daniel." Daniel turned around and walked back to the gate. The man's face was locked in a fierce scowl. Daniel stood before him, trembling badly, his mind racing with the terrifying realization that this must be Maya's notoriously jealous husband, and he had just walked right into a trap. The man glared at him and demanded, "Who are you looking for?" Daniel stammered, "Maya. I usually drop her off right here," the man barked. "Who are you to her?" Respectfully and with a trembling voice, Daniel answered, I am her motorcycle courier." The man asked, "Did she tell you she lives here?" Daniel replied, "Yes, she said she lives here and that she's married. I just came to check on her." With a furious snarl, the man snapped, "She doesn't live here. There is no one named Maya here." Daniel muttered, "Oh, okay," and turned to go. Looking around, he knew for an absolute fact that this was the exact spot he dropped her off every day, with no other houses around. But figuring it was best not to argue, he swung his leg over his bike. Before he could even start the engine, the dark-skinned man called out again, "Hey, young man! If that Maya comes looking for you, what should we tell her?" Daniel froze in confusion. "Wait, which Maya? Didn't they just tell me they don't know her?" The man pressed on. "Where do you park your stand?" Daniel's mind was still tangled in the assumption that this guy was Maya's husband. To avoid any trouble that might blow up later, he decided to tell the truth. "I park behind the station. If you ask for Daniel the courier, you'll find me." The man nodded. "All right." Daniel started his bike and rode away. Back at the station, Daniel told his fellow riders about the bizarre encounter. They laughed and warned him, "You're playing with fire, man. If you realize a passenger is a married man's wife, stay far away. It's better to lose one passenger than to lose your entire life." Daniel agreed with his friends and went back to his hustle. Female passenger came to the station where Daniel was parked. She said she wanted to go somewhere unfamiliar and that her host would call to guide them along the way. Daniel took her and they set off. And that turned out to be Daniel's final journey. He never returned. He never came back to his station, and he didn't return home. On the first day, Daniel didn't come home and his phone was unreachable. Uncle Eric assumed the young man was just getting carried away with city life and enjoying himself, too much to return home immediately. He didn't report it right away, intending to scold Daniel severely once he showed up. But the next day passed, and the day after that, still no Daniel. Daniel usually sent his daily earnings via mobile money to the bike's owner. whom Uncle Eric knew. The owner called Eric, asking if he knew where Daniel was or if he had received any payments. The owner hadn't been able to reach Daniel either. Both men realized the terrifying truth. Daniel was missing. The search began. Uncle Eric and the motorcycle owner went to Daniel's station, but the other couriers hadn't seen him for days. They rushed to the police station to open a missing person case, registering Daniel's name and the motorcycle's plate number. Everyone assumed it was a standard motorcycle theft and robbery. But that horrific assumption was shattered when news broke. The motorcycle had been found abandoned, deep in a forest, with Daniel's dead body right beside it. Daniel's body was in a heartbreaking state. His face was brutally disfigured, and his hands had been slashed. According to the police report, whoever killed him had tortured him mercilessly before taking his life. When police asked Uncle Eric if Daniel had any secrets or enemies, Eric drew a complete blank. He knew his nephew, Daniel, was gentle, quiet, and friendly with everyone. He couldn't fathom what Daniel could have possibly done to deserve such savage torture and murder. The grief weighed heavily on him, but eventually, he had to accept the painful reality. That urban street life can be brutally unpredictable. Daniel's body was transported and buried up country, where his mother lived. His mother's wails of grief pierced the air. "Oh, my son, you were the big one, the one supposed to help your younger siblings. When you went to the city, I thought our lives would change. But God called you home, Daniel." 2 weeks after the funeral, Uncle Eric returned to the city. The ghost of Daniel still haunted his mind. Whenever he rested at home, the sound of Daniel's mother crying echoed in his head. His heart urged him to find out who killed his nephew, even though he had no clues or starting points. Worse still, he started hearing phantom knocks on his door around the exact time Daniel used to return home. At first, he ignored them and they faded away. But one evening the knocking returned, persistent and refusing to stop. Eric got up, opened the door, and was surprised to find a young motorcycle courier standing there. The young man greeted him respectfully and stated that he had information that could help find Daniel's killer. Uncle Eric invited him inside, bolted the door, and demanded to know why he hadn't come forward earlier. The young courier nervously admitted he was terrified of getting tangled up in deep police interrogations. Eric studied the young man's face, realized he wasn't lying, and pressed him to tell the whole story. The courier recounted everything, how Daniel had a regular passenger named Maya from a specific location, how she vanished, how Daniel went to her house and encountered hostile people, and how Daniel disappeared shortly after. He firmly believed there was a direct link between Maya's disappearance and Daniel's murder. The next morning, Eric and the young courier went back to that neighborhood. The courier pointed out the shops from a distance. Eric walked over and discovered Maya's shop was closed, but he tracked down the owner of the commercial space at a nearby stationery shop. Posing as Maya's uncle, who was dealing with a serious police investigation, Eric pressured the shop space owner. Terrified of the police, the owner immediately handed over Maya's original job application forms, contracts, and documents. Eric took them and returned home. And here is where the story turns into something completely unexpected. Remember at the very beginning, we mentioned that Uncle Eric was a mystery man whose exact line of work nobody could figure out. Back at home, Eric took pictures of Maya's documents with his phone. For half an hour, he sat in deep thought, hesitant about his next move. Every time he closed his eyes, a haunting memory flashed through his brain. A soldier running frantically through a jungle, breathing heavily, wearing military fatigues, holding an AK-47, carrying a heavy backpack and limping, though his face remained unseen. Eric sat with that vision for 45 minutes before making up his mind. He walked into his bedroom, flipped over his mattress and removed the baseboards. Taking a hammer, he smashed through the concrete flooring beneath the bed, pulled away the chunks of cement, and dug into the earth with his bare hands. He pulled out a small, heavy metal box that could easily be held in one hand. Emblazoned across the top in red ink was the word, "Confidential." Carrying the box to the living room with trembling hands, he unlocked it and pulled out a specialized SIM card. He removed the SIM card from his current phone and inserted the confidential one. Surprisingly, the moment the SIM connected, dialing a number routed through an automated customer service voice. Sorry, the number you have dialed. Before the automated message could finish, Uncle Eric cut in sharply. Commando Eric, T-77, T-20, T-40. Last branch, last survivor. The automated voice instantly stopped. The secure line recognized the precise military clearance codes. It was a secret system, set up so that the number appeared inactive to outsiders unless unlocked with those exact operative codes. Seconds later, the call connected directly to a high-ranking handler. 77, a voice answered on the other end. Agent 77 was his call sign. The voice on the line asked, "Why after 10 years? Have you decided to call us today? You asked for a life of absolute freedom and we gave it to you. What made you dial this number now? State your purpose briefly." It turned out that Uncle Eric was a retired elite commando who had walked away from the military after a catastrophic, high-stakes mission. That mission went terribly wrong, resulting in the deaths of his entire unit, leaving him as the sole survivor. The haunting vision of the soldier running through the jungle was his own memory of that fateful day. Consumed by survivor's guilt, Eric had refused all retirement benefits, cut ties, and vanished off the grid into civilian life. Yet today, driven by the murder of his nephew, the retired commando was back. Eric requested one favor: full intelligence files on the woman named Maya. When asked why, he replied, "Consider it a token of appreciation for all those years. I refused my retirement payout. You don't just hide from military intelligence." Within 20 minutes, a complete dossier on Maya was transmitted to him. The files revealed the truth. Maya was never a housewife or a married woman living in that upscale house. She was an undercover intelligence detective operating under an alias. That house belonged to an influential foreign criminal of Asian descent, and Maya had been posing as an independent massage therapist to infiltrate his inner circle and gather evidence. The files confirmed that Maya had successfully secured the evidence. All that remained was for the tactical strike team to move in and make arrests. However, just before the raid, the criminal syndicate began suspecting they were being watched. Connecting the dots, Uncle Eric realized the criminals must have also suspected Daniel, the motorcycle courier who kept visiting the perimeter, was part of the surveillance operation, leading to his brutal execution. Suddenly, everything began to make sense. Maya's strange behavior, her refusal to give Daniel her phone number, her disappearance, the mysterious house, and the hostile men at the gate were all connected. Daniel had unknowingly become part of an operation far beyond his understanding. He had simply been doing his job, transporting a passenger who was secretly working undercover. But the criminals had seen him coming and going from the area. To them, Daniel may have looked like another person involved in the surveillance operation, and that innocent assumption had cost him his life. Eric stared at Maya's file for a long time. For years, he had tried to bury the soldier he once was. He had abandoned his old identity, refused the military benefits he had earned, and built a quiet life where nobody knew what he had survived. But Daniel's murder had awakened something inside him that he thought was dead. The retired commando had one final decision to make. Uncle Eric made one final phone call to his former handlers. He left a single, chilling message: "If anything happens to those suspects, know that I did it." He hung up the phone. That was Tuesday. On Thursday night, major breaking news flashed across the city. 9 people inside the guarded residence of the foreign criminal had been found brutally murdered, their throats slit, with massive shipments of illegal narcotics recovered from the living room table. Uncle Eric returned to his quiet neighborhood. Blending back into his usual ordinary routine, his heart finally at peace. And that brings us to the end of the story of Daniel and his uncle Eric. Through this harrowing tale, we learn one major lesson: never judge a person by how they appear on the surface. Do not look at someone and make quick assumptions about who they are or what they're capable of. You never truly know where people came from or what battles they have survived.